Hello, dear listener. Today is Tuesday, June 22nd, 2020, and this is episode 2 of the Sport Fanatics podcast. My name is Chris.
And my name is J. Mike.
Today we'll be talking about the NBA playoffs, the College World Series, and a little bit about the NASCAR weekend. But for now, we'll just roll the theme song.
Let's go.
Okay, well, hey, let's start with that NBA weekend. It was an incredible weekend for the NBA. Where do you want to start first, J. Mike?
Well, Chris, let's begin with speaking of the debilitating injuries that we touched on in last week's podcast. I'd like to begin with Kawhi Leonard's knee injury and how it unlikely helped the Clippers actually click on the offensive end of the floor.
Yeah, that was sort of a surprise. We were getting ready to upload last week's episode when news of that broke out. I thought it was going to sort of ruin some of our predictions for the week.
Yeah, considering Kawhi Leonard is one of the best players in the NBA, the Clippers really invested into him in free agency 2 seasons ago. You figured with him being out for the rest of that series that it would hurt them on the offense on the offensive and defensive end of the floor, but unlikely Paul George steps up in Kawhi's absence, coming up big time, and really silencing his playoff critics by transforming from Pandemic P, as his critics have been calling him, dating back to last season, into Playoff P, which really makes me think of his days as a Indiana Pacer when the offense was primarily run through him. And so it was great to see Paul George step up in this series to help close out the Utah Jazz in Game 6. I also want to touch on an outstanding performance from the 2019 second-round pick of the Clippers from Florida State, Terrence Mann. He stepped it up on the offensive end as well, scoring 39 points. He was 15 of 21 from the field and 7 of 10 from 3.
Yeah, we talked about last week how when you have injuries like that, you need your other players to step up, and that's exactly what happened for the Clippers with those guys. Really solid performances.
Yes, absolutely huge, considering Kawhi Leonard out with that knee injury. They're able to put the Utah Jazz away in Game 6, winning the series 4-2 with that 131-119 victory. And with that win, that advances the Clippers to their first ever appearance in the Western Conference Finals in their 50-year history as a franchise.
Which is just insane. Talk about exciting for that fan base. But now they're going to be joining the Suns. It's been a while for them too, but it's been a while for all of these teams.
Absolutely. You're looking at 4 playoff teams who 2 of them have never won a championship, and the Hawks have not won a championship since 1958 when they were the St. Louis Hawks. and the Milwaukee Bucks have not won an NBA championship since 1971. So it's going to be either a first-time champion like we talked about last week, or somebody's title drought will end this season, which is great for sports and great for the sport of basketball for sure. I also want to touch on Clippers coach Ty Lue. He is now 12-1 as a coach in series clinching games. That is the best in NBA history.
That is, talk about clutch. That's amazing.
And the Clippers are the first team to ever win 2 playoff series in a row, down 2-0, beating the NBA's best record in the Utah Jazz, 4 straight to win that series. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it didn't even take 7 games to come back. Got it done in 6.
And without Kawhi Leonard. So once again, huge performances by Paul George and Terrence Mann picking up the slack in his absence. Exactly what needed to be done to propel this hot, clicking on all cylinders Clippers team to their first Western Conference Finals in their 50-year history.
Has to feel pretty good. They have to feel pretty confident, though we've already seen Game 1. We know that the Suns won that. But the Clippers have proven that they can come back from a deficit.
Yes.
So they probably aren't too worried. They just have to be sure that they start clicking again like they were. And I think we'll have a fun series there.
Absolutely. It's already proven to be a great series going forward, with that Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals going to the Suns in a 120-114 victory over those same LA Clippers. Devin Booker, 40-point triple-double in that Game 1 win, which joins Charles Barkley as the only 2 Suns players to do so.
And you're in good company there.
Absolutely. The mound round of rebound. I mean, come on now. Like you said, doesn't get much better than that, Chris. Now the Suns are still without CP3 due to health and safety protocols. His status will remain uncertain for tonight's game. There's I really don't expect Chris Paul to play tonight. We all know that Kawhi Leonard has been ruled out of this game as well with that knee injury. So once again, you're more than likely looking at each respectable team's superstar not being on the floor in Game 2 tonight, which goes back to Devin Booker probably having to replicate his performance from Game 1, and others helping him out. Also, Paul George and Terrence Mann for the Clippers have to continue playing at this great pace that they're playing at. So it should be a very exciting Game 2 tonight. Just like we saw in a close Game 1 win for the Suns over the Clippers.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. You want to see your superstars out there, especially in the playoffs. That's what everybody really wants to see. But at the same time, I'm interested to see which team can deal with it the best moving forward. And like you say, I think there's going to be another good close game tonight. And we'll see where the series goes from there.
Yeah, it's going to be a great series for sure. Definitely looking forward to tonight's game and the rest of the series. This series could very well go 7. Of course, I would absolutely love to see both superstars and Kawhi Leonard and Chris Paul come back healthy and rejuvenated to help their 2 teams in a Western Conference Finals battle, but between two teams that have never won an NBA championship. So definitely looking forward to tonight and the rest of this series for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So with that being said, going back to Ty Lue, who is now 12-1 as a coach in series clinching games. He replaced former Clippers head coach Doc Rivers.
That's right, yeah.
And has done an exceptional job coaching this Clippers team without the presence of their superstar Kawhi Leonard with that knee injury that we just talked about. But I'd really like to go in now, Chris, to Doc Rivers' playoff struggles as a NBA head coach. They continue, unfortunately.
Well, he's the other side of that coin, being clutch. He's on the unfortunate side of that.
Right. You've got Ty Lue, who has proven that he's clutch as a postseason head coach. But Doc Rivers, on the other side, not so much of a clutch NBA coach. In that series with the Atlanta Hawks, there were 2 blown second-half leads in games 4 and 5. They are the only team to blow back-to-back 18-point or more point leads in the last 25 seasons.
Wow.
It's not good.
Yeah, no.
Not good.
Over 2 decades.
Okay. They had a 95.5 win probability in Game 4. And late in the third quarter of Game 5, it reached out to a 99.7% win probability for the Sixers.
And you got to win when you're at 99.7%.
Absolutely.
Come on now.
Absolutely. Exactly, Chris. You have got to find a way to get the job done and close a game out. If you, especially right here, up 26 points in Game 5, come on now. And with that 26 point blown lead in Game 5, that was tied for the third largest blown lead in a playoff game in the last 25 postseasons. Just
wow.
It just not good. Not good. Going forward with that, another dismal performance offensively in the fourth quarter of Game 7, which eliminates Doc Rivers' number 1 seeded 76ers from the Eastern Conference playoffs.
And, of course, Game 7 is crunch time. Game 7 is when you have to be at your best. Now, okay, we're talking about his struggles and how unclutch Doc Rivers has been. He's obviously still going to be with the 76ers moving forward here. Do you see a way he can turn this around and what he can change to not have all these issues with closing out games and series?
It really came down to his execution as a coach of really putting his players in the right position. A bunch of times in this series that did not happen with those 2 huge blown leads in games 4 and 5 of that series. We all knew Joel Embiid, very hobbled up by that knee injury. Him being the primary scoring option on that team, he needed help. And his battery mate in Ben Simmons did not help him out at all. He was struggled from the field a lot in this series. Ben Simmons averaged 9.9 points per game in this series against the Hawks and shot 33% from the free throw line. He went scoreless from the field in the last 4 games of that series in the fourth quarter, not helping out Embiid at all, especially with him hobbled by that knee injury, and you needed somebody to step up, especially in this series against a scrappy Atlanta Hawks team that is playing very confident basketball, playing with no fear.
Well, again, in contrast with the Clippers that you were talking about earlier, the 76ers just did not have anybody that was able to step up like that. An incredible cold streak with shooting in that series for Simmons.
Yes, absolutely. You figured Doc Rivers would draw up more plays for Simmons to really attack the paint more and get his points that way to be able to help the 76ers team out on offense, which would have really helped close out those games when they had those two huge games where they were up big in the second half.
Well, and even if it's some sort of just basic fundamentals issue where Simmons, whatever his struggles are, the 76ers and Doc Rivers are going to have to figure this out moving forward. I'm not sure what the organization will do with him next year.
Right.
But they can't have those struggles.
Oh, no question about it. And
that falls on Doc Rivers and the coaching staff to try to figure that out.
Absolutely, Chris. And I'd like to touch on this point as we continue with Doc Rivers and his playoff struggles as a head coach. What bothered me the most is the day after losing Game 7, Doc Rivers comes out and says that he and his staff knows what work needs to be done to address Ben Simmons' offense. He says it starts with Simmons becoming a more confident free throw shooter, but I believe there's more to it than that. He once again, in my opinion, he did not really tell Simmons to drive the ball in the paint to get his points that way, especially if he's struggling with the shot. I know I touched on this last week, Chris, that teams were adopting that hack and shack where they used to foul Shaquille O'Neal, send him to the free throw line because they knew that he would automatically miss both shots.
Right. If you know they ain't going to hit the basket, you're nothing to lose.
Exactly. So that's exactly what the Hawks did towards the end of that Game 7. They hacked Ben Simmons, put him on the free throw line, and once again, the whole series he shot 33% from the free throw line. So there you go. Ben Simmons scoreless from the field in the last 4 games of the fourth quarter of that series. I know he only scored 2 points in the fourth quarter in Game 1. He was scoreless in the fourth quarter in Game 2. Scored only 1 point in Game 3. And the final 4 games of the series in the fourth quarter, he went scoreless from the field. So that's what really bothered me, Chris, is he waits a day later to come out and say this when we all know his struggles as a head coach in the postseason. I mean, come on now. He now, Doc Rivers now has 29 losses with a chance to win a playoff series. That is the most in NBA history. His .341 win percentage is the worst all time among coaches with 20 or more playoff games coached. Going more into his struggles, really, Chris. Some more of his playoff struggles that come to mind are the 2010 NBA Finals versus the Los Angeles Lakers, losing Game 7 of that series.
Oh yeah, okay.
Also, what comes to mind is that Eastern Conference Finals collapse against the LeBron James-led Miami Heat, where they were up 3-2 in that series.
That's right. Yep.
Miami, of course, won the next 2 games and ended up becoming NBA champions later in that postseason. And also last year's playoff series in the bubble between when he coached the Clippers last season against the Nuggets when they led that series 3-1, and had a couple of blown double-digit leads in that series as well, just like the series against the Hawks. So great regular season coach, just can't seem to find it in the playoffs, and year after year we're having this conversation, unfortunately, about Doc Rivers.
Hopefully he can figure it out to gather some of that performance they get in the regular season, like number 1 seed coming in.
Yeah, yes, and that goes back to what I just said. Great regular season coach.
Right.
He is able to coach his team to a number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Number 1 overall record in the Eastern Conference.
It's just the finish.
Exactly.
And I don't want this to just be we're not just tearing down Doc Rivers to tear down Doc Rivers, but
the facts are there, people.
Exactly. He definitely struggled in the postseason, and hopefully he can figure it out in the future. Maybe it's just a matter of coaching in the postseason when you have a handful of games to deal with is so much different than when you have that long form season. You have to be quicker with pulling certain people's substitutions. Maybe also, like when Simmons, just the way he was trying to figure out a way to get around him, moving forward with him. I've seen people talk about trying to change his hand that he's shooting with, or maybe moving his position. Maybe either one of those could work. I believe Doc Rivers is smart enough that he'll figure out something, hopefully for the best for Simmons and the team.
But it's just a shame that it did not happen
sooner. And I don't know if that's a change you can make this postseason, but he really was sort of a liability out there on the court for this series.
Yes, no question about it. And I heard today on First Take, Chris, where Stephen A. pointed out that 76ers brass really has babied Ben Simmons.
Oh, okay.
So, once again, that falls on the coaching staff. And Doc Rivers is the head man. He waits a day after they lose that Game 7 against the Hawks and says that he believes the way for Simmons to get better is to become a more confident free throw shooter.
Oh,
that's not just it though. He has got to find a shot.
Yeah,
a jumper.
Free throw shooting is really just the start of the issues that are going on there. So
yeah, now if he's able to work on his free throw shooting mechanics and get better at the line, they won't have to hack him anymore.
Right.
To where he's not missing both free throws at the line, but also working on a more consistent jump shot. It is really going to help him become the number 1 overall player that the 76ers envisioned when they drafted him a few years back out of LSU.
And he could be a huge part of the getting over the hump for both the 76ers and Doc Rivers.
Now, I did not like the fact also in this series that Doc Rivers had him playing as the primary point guard instead of his natural position of being a power forward. That also really messed with Simmons' psyche as well in this series, I do believe. But it's just unfortunate that Doc Rivers still continues to struggle in the playoffs. Ever since he last won an NBA championship with the 2008 Boston Celtics. So it's really unfortunate, but obviously there is a huge issue with Doc Rivers in the playoffs.
Right. Well, and that leaves the Hawks and Bucks left to fight it out in the East.
Speaking of that series, Chris, Atlanta Hawks win the series over the number 1 seeded 76ers with a 103-96 win. Herter led the Hawks in scoring with 27 points and 7 rebounds. Ice Trae Young, 21 points and 10 assists. But a crazy stat here, Chris. Trae Young only shot 21.7% in Game 7. That was tied the 4th worst shooting percentage in a Game 7.
Oof. Yeah, that's pretty rough there.
No doubt about it.
Pretty impressive to be able to get past that.
That percentage also tied a member of the team that the Hawks are fixing to go up against in this Eastern Conference Finals, and that is Drew Holiday of the Milwaukee Bucks, who did the same thing as well in their Game 7 win over the Nets.
It's pretty impressive to have somebody shooting that poorly and still pull out the win.
Right. Yeah, you don't see that very often for sure. The irony here, Chris, is Trae Young also joined 76er head coach Doc Rivers as the only players in Atlanta Hawks history to record a points assist double-double in Game 7 on the road.
Oh, wow.
But another crazy stat for Trae Young is he only shot 1 for 12 in the first half of that Game 7. Once again, with the offensive liability on that end of the floor from the 76ers, helps keep the Atlanta Hawks in this series, helps keep them in those games where they were down by double digits.
Which ends up giving them the series win.
Absolutely. Especially doesn't help once again with Ben Simmons going scoreless in the fourth quarter and having to rely too much on Joel Embiid with that partially torn meniscus. Just like I touched on last week, Chris, not enough offense for the 76ers. Ends up being their demise as they completely fall apart in this series. And those scrappy, fearless Atlanta Hawks are moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Now, like you called it, the Bucks ended up beating the Nets in Brooklyn in Game 7.
Yes, that was a game for the ages, Chris. Bucks are able to pull out a tight overtime Game 7 over those Brooklyn Nets, 113-111 to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals against those scrappy, fearless Atlanta Hawks. Kevin Durant hit a game-tying jumper with 1 second remaining in regulation. To me, Chris, it looked like a three-pointer when the shot left his hand, but unfortunately, looking back on it, he did step on the line, which resulted in a two-pointer, which tied the game up in regulation and sent it to overtime. In overtime, P.J. Tucker of the Milwaukee Bucks fouled out with under 2 minutes remaining, and Chris Middleton hits a go-ahead shot with 40 seconds left to go in overtime. Kevin Durant then airballs a would-be game winner with 3 ticks remaining on the play clock in overtime to give those Bucks the win over the Nets. Kevin Durant finished with 48 points. That was the most in Game 7 history. But he went 0 for 6 from the field in overtime. Second most misses without a make by any player in an overtime period over the last 25 postseasons.
Yeah, hard to be too mad, though, with Durant as a Nets fan when you wouldn't have even been in overtime if it weren't for him having such a great game up to that point.
Yes, and we all knew he really had to be the primary scoring option with a hobbled James Harden dealing with the hamstring issue and Kyrie Irving, who was out the remainder of that series with that ankle injury. Giannis Antetokounmpo finished with 40 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists. He played 50 minutes in the game. Giannis is the 5th player in postseason history with 40-plus points and 10-plus rebounds in Game 7, joining Tim Duncan in 2006, Charles Barkley in 1993, Jerry West in 1969, and Elgin Baylor in 1962.
Some incredible company there.
Absolutely. I want to touch for just a moment, Chris, about what Kevin Durant said post-game. He said he initially thought his shot at the end of regulation was a 3. Quoted right here, said, "But my big foot stepped on the line. I just saw how close I was to ending their season with that shot."
It's gotta be hard to sleep at night that night after that, to know you're just a few millimeters away.
Yes, and I'm telling you, Chris, going back and watching that shot, it looked like, because the player that defended him went up to alter his shot, of course, and when he does, you at the time you couldn't really see where he was on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
When he shot that last second shot in regulation, but to me it looked like a 3. Just from the angle he shot it. Unfortunately, he steps on the line, so the game continues to go on into overtime, and this time when he goes up the floor trying to win the game, he unfortunately shoots an air ball, and that's just mainly on fatigue,
right? I mean,
by his part, having to carry this Nets team without two of their biggest and best players due to injury, what we've all seen all postseason long, unfortunately.
Yeah, his legs and back had to be pretty sore from carrying that team as far as he did already in that game.
Absolutely. He had a 49-point game in Game 5 of that series, and finishes this series out with 48 points. Unfortunately, Nets are not able to close out that series. Bucks win the remaining 2 games, which the Bucks have been 0 for 15 in a best of 7 series when falling behind 2-0. Unfortunately, the Nets are not able to close out the Milwaukee Bucks. Bucks are able to win the next 2 with a hobbled up Brooklyn Nets team, and they're able to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals against those scrappy, fearless Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, how do you feel going into that series? Who do you think has the upper hand?
Milwaukee for sure.
Okay.
Especially after nobody thought they would come back and beat this Brooklyn Nets team with their big 3 falling behind 2-0 once again. But injuries unfortunately play a huge part in the postseason. In this postseason for sure. I've never seen so many injuries ever. It seems like it's just one after the other. You hate to see it, especially for a Brooklyn Nets team that really had championship aspirations this season, with acquiring James Harden early to middle part of the season. Arguably had the best 3 in basketball right now. It's just an unfortunate circumstance that cost them in this series. But I really like the Bucks moving forward. I love how Atlanta's playing right now, but I don't believe they're going to be able to hang with this Milwaukee Bucks squad that can get it done on both ends of the floor, something that the 76ers didn't do, especially on the offensive end. But Milwaukee can put them away offensively. I like the Bucks in either 5 or 6.
Okay. I mean, those scrappy teams can be scary in the postseason.
And Atlanta has shown that,
Right.
for sure. It's been an incredible run by Atlanta, who, let's face the facts here, incredible job by Nate McMillan, who inherited that team when they were 14-20 in the regular season. Outstanding coaching job by Nate McMillan, who was fired end of last season by the Indiana Pacers, ends up joining the Atlanta Hawks coaching staff as an assistant. They decide to move on from their head coach with an awful start, promote Nate McMillan to interim, and now he has led this Atlanta Hawks team to the Eastern Conference Finals. Exceptional coaching job by Nate McMillan. Congratulations to him and the Atlanta Hawks. You're on to the Eastern Conference Finals, 4 wins away from an NBA Finals appearance.
They got a shot. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what that combination does moving forward. Maybe coach and team finally found a good match for each other.
Oh, yes, and it's really great to see that Nate McMillan has overcome some struggles as a head coach of his own, but I believe he's in the right place right now with this really fun and young Atlanta Hawks team. We've grown accustomed to watching them throughout the season, and especially in these playoffs. They have been absolutely fun to watch. But credit Nate McMillan for the job that he's done turning around that team when he inherited them with a 14-20 record.
It'll be interesting to see how they finish this series and perform moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. But I just believe the Bucks can put them away offensively, something that the 76ers weren't able to do. Of course, I've touched on that on previous occasions here, but Milwaukee is really good at both ends of the floor, and I do believe they'll be able to put Atlanta away early and often if they do have a big lead, something that the 76ers weren't able to do. I like the Milwaukee Bucks in this series, but once again, Atlanta has just been a fun team to watch over these past couple of weeks. Just outstanding job by Nate McMillan. I hope we have a great Eastern Conference Finals, but from what I saw the previous series, I just believe the Bucks will be able to put them away offensively.
All right, moving on. One thing that started this weekend, we talked about it last week, was the College Baseball World Series.
Yeah.
Now, we've already had somebody get knocked out. Arizona's out.
I know, right? Just crazy to think that they're already out, considering how good their offense was against Ole Miss in that Super Regional. They score more than 10 runs in a Game 1 win over Ole Miss.
Yeah, they were one of the teams you were debating between.
Right. And ironically, they played each other.
Right.
They played each other in that elimination game, which was against Stanford, of course. And I just figured that Arizona might be able to find the pitching to really make up for, the slack that had caused them throughout the season, because we all knew that their offense was so good. They proved it against Ole Miss in that Super Regional. But
it was Stanford's offense that came to play in that elimination game.
Yes, and I touched on that last week, Chris, which is why I picked Stanford to come out on that tough side of that bracket. That side of the bracket, as I've mentioned before, is unbelievable, considering you've got the best of both worlds with two teams that could pitch it really well, and two teams that can hit it really well.
Well, and speaking of that, the surprise coming out, NC State is the one in the driver's seat.
Yeah, that 1-0 win over Jack Leiter and the Vanderbilt Commodores last night in a great pitching duel there. NC State able to score one run better than the Commodores to like you said, Chris, advance and really put themselves in the driver's seat on that side of the bracket.
And just one pitch, really, it was a home run. So just one
mistake.
One mistake was the difference in that game.
Yeah, and it's crazy how a mistake like that came back to bite Vanderbilt. But as we both knew going into that game last night, we knew it was going to be a pitcher's duel. Both NC State and Vandy have shown all season long that they pitch it extremely well. Of course, not enough offense, though, for both teams, which is a question mark moving forward, especially for Vandy. If they want to remain alive in the College World Series, they've got to pick it up offensively. They haven't really done it here as of late.
Yeah, my pick to win that bracket, things aren't looking great. They've already thrown their two big hands.
Yes, and now they're fixing to go up against a Stanford team that can do both, pitch it really well, slug it really well. So they're in for a tough battle in a loser's bracket game.
And then one of them will be going to play NC State, which again is just wild to me.
Yes, but you and I both know pitching wins championships.
Which is why I went with Vandy in the first place, but they just got outpitched 1-0.
They did. They did, and it's crazy that Jack Leiter threw, what was it, 120 pitches last night in eight innings of one-run ball. But once again, Vandy's just not able to muster enough offense.
That's one that hurts to lose as a pitcher. You have that good of a game,
yes,
and don't get the win.
Yes, you're giving it your all on the biggest stage of college baseball, and your team's not able to help you out offensively.
Literally no run support.
No run support. And let me tell you, folks, that's not a pitcher's best friend at all. You definitely need run support, especially when you're pitching that great of an outing. It's just unfortunate that offensive woes continue for this Vanderbilt Commodores team, dating back to their super regional against East Carolina. They're able to just muster up enough run support there. Not much, but enough to sweep East Carolina in two games to move them to the College World Series. But once again, the reason why I didn't pick Vandy was because of their offense. I knew they could pitch it well, but I like a team that can do both. And in this College World Series, that's really going to be what propels you to win a national championship.
I was banking on Vandy getting those, starting out with those two wins to stay in the winner's bracket, and then close it out with one of those last two games. But now they're definitely behind the eight ball, and it's still, I'd love to see NC State pull this out, but it's going to be, that Stanford team is going to be coming hard and ready to go with that offense clicking, and their pitching just has to be good enough to.
And I believe that it is, Chris. That's why I picked them. I really liked what I saw in their super regional series against Texas Tech, where they swept them in two games as well. They were dominant on both sides, pitching and hitting, which is why I like that Stanford team a lot. Unfortunately, for them, NC State shoved it in that opener against Stanford, stymieing that great offense that we've seen from Stanford, putting them in the losers bracket early.
Yeah, NC State proved they can do it. They're just going to have to prove it again.
Yes, and their pitching going forward, which has been phenomenal. What kept them in that series against Arkansas, which propelled them to that series upset against Arkansas, and we're seeing it here in Omaha. They're continuing to pitch it well. Hopefully for the Wolfpack, they're able to do it just one more time, Chris. If they can have one more solid pitching performance, my brother, NC State Wolfpack will be playing in the College World Series final. Great. It would just be a phenomenal story there.
For sure. That would be an amazing thing to watch. It's going to be tough, but I'm feeling pretty good for them.
And of course, whoever wins that elimination game between Stanford or Vanderbilt would have to beat NC State twice to advance to the College World Series final. But NC State just needs that one more solid pitching performance, and I do believe they can move on for a chance to play for a national title.
And if I'm NC State, I probably would rather play Vandy again.
Yes, considering their offensive lows. But as we just touched on, they're in for a tough battle against the Stanford team, who I like, who I picked on that side of the bracket, because they can do both.
Yeah, I don't want to completely throw out Vandy because they were my pick going in after all, but it's going to be an uphill battle for sure.
Yes, and what helps them though, Chris, here is they are the defending national champions. Even though we had the COVID shortened season last year, where the regular season wasn't completed, we didn't have postseason baseball at all.
Right,
but still, you've got players on that Vanderbilt squad, from that same Vanderbilt squad that won the national title 2 seasons ago. So you have guys with the right mindset of, hey, we've been here before. We know how to win on this grand stage, but we're just going to have to come up through the losers bracket, unfortunately now. But if anybody can do it, it very well can be this Vanderbilt squad. They've just got to find it offensively if they plan on getting out of the losers bracket.
Well,
here.
for sure. They obviously, if they're going to put up another goose egg, then it's over.
Absolutely.
They've got to score something.
They have to.
I mean, all they needed last night was 2 runs, and they could have won that game theoretically. You know.
Yeah, and then if you're Tim Corbin, you can really go through the rest of your pitching options remaining. Who gives you the best shot of just winning that one game to put you back in the College World Series final, where you're playing for quite possibly your second straight national title, and then with those couple of days off, which is great for the team that's in the driver's seat, because you're able to assess a lot about your team and going forward, and how you can put yourself in that position to play for a national title. But Tim Corbin would also be able to figure out something offensively, maybe even moving guys up in the order, or up or down the order, maybe finding guys that have been pinch hitters or on the bench all season long that could quite possibly give you a spark offensively to help get you going that way, to help your pitching staff out.
All right, just make any adjustments.
But that win last night for NC State really helps them out, because they're able to take a breather for the next couple of days. and they're able to really start to dissect and watch more film on the two remaining opponents that they could play in Stanford and Vandy, and especially watching that elimination game coming up here obviously gives the Wolfpack the edge there as well.
Oh, for sure. And the prospect of having to play 3 more games feels a lot more daunting for Vandy than it does Stanford.
Right. But once again, if anybody could get it done,
yeah,
it could very well be Vandy, because the old cliche, been there, done that.
Yeah, they've got the swagger for it. It's just, do they have the pieces to actually be able to do it?
Right. And Tim Corbin's got a lot to think about going forward, especially if he plans to extend his stay in Omaha.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of great pitching games, we saw that with Texas and Mississippi State.
Another great pitchers duel, Chris.
Yeah, State
between Ty Madden and Will Bednar.
Right. State was holding on to that 2-run lead for the whole game.
Yeah.
And then in the 9th inning, Texas tried to make a comeback, hit that home run, got the bases, got people on base.
Against Mississippi State's dominant closer in Landon Sims, who I can't even remember the last time he had been in a jam like that, considering he had been so dominant for this team throughout a long stretch.
Yeah, Texas gave him a real scare. Well, and the whole Mississippi State team and fans, a huge scare there at the end. They had the tying run on third.
They sure did.
Watching that game, it felt like just a situation where
Texas had the momentum.
Yeah, Texas all of a sudden just had every bit of the momentum, and it felt like
just couldn't get that key hit to tie up the ball game.
Yeah, Mississippi State in the end was able to close it out.
Yeah, and
they're definitely in the driver's seat.
They are. They were my pick to come out of that side of the bracket. Reason being, I felt like they're on the right side of the bracket in Omaha for once. Of course, it helps you finishing out Texas in that game, putting them in the losers bracket where they have to play Tennessee today.
Yeah, that's the other team that would be big
debatable
competition for you is Tennessee.
Oh yeah, and that was another big time opening round upset in these College World Series, with Virginia beating Tennessee, blanking them 6-0, Chris. I do believe.
I think it was 5 or 6-0.
Right,
yeah.
Sending Tennessee to the losers bracket. So now you've got those two juggernauts having to battle it out in an elimination game, and you feel really good if you're Mississippi State right now, because one of them is going home after today, and all you got to do is take care of business. Taking care of business. That's all you have to do tonight against Virginia, and you're in the same position that NC State's in.
Right. Well, and we'll see what Virginia can do. It certainly feels like Mississippi State's game to lose.
Yeah.
But Virginia,
they have the right guy on the mound though tonight, Chris. They're going. Mississippi State will go with their Friday night ace, Christian McLeod.
Yeah.
The left-hander that's been sensational throughout the season. So great game plan by Mississippi State head coach Chris Lemonis, going with this number 2 Saturday starter and Will Bednar, who was sensational the other night against Texas, striking out 15 Longhorns.
Yeah, I think the team overall had 21 strikeouts, which was a college baseball record.
Yes,
in the World Series.
Yes, it was. So Mississippi State, phenomenal night on the mound. out of their two horses in Bednar and Sims, they're able to fight off Texas. Pardon the pun, because they love to chant "Fight Texas, fight!"
Yeah.
Hook 'em horns, all that good stuff. But they're able to hold them off, advance to the winners bracket, where they take care of business tonight. Chris, they're in the driver's seat as well, looking really good on that side of the bracket.
And even then, the loser of that game tonight is going to have to play whoever's slugging it out, whoever wins this tough matchup between Tennessee and Texas.
Right, which is why you want to take care of business tonight,
right.
Correct?
Oh, well, yeah, but even then, you probably don't feel too bad going against either one of these two teams today, even if you're Virginia.
And Virginia has shown all of a sudden that they can pitch it well.
Yeah, they really held Tennessee down.
They did. Tennessee, we've all seen it throughout the season, how great their lineup is. They shut them out. Incredible job by that pitching staff, the coaching staff, getting those guys ready to go up against that offense, putting them in the winners bracket where you win tonight, you're in the driver's seat, where you're one win away from the College World Series final.
Yeah, and we're recording this as the Tennessee-Texas game is going on, and tonight, of course, Mississippi State and Virginia will play. So by the time this goes up, we may know the results from those games. But as it stands now, have to feel really good if you're an NC State or a Mississippi State fan. Now, of course,
and they both have pitching.
Oh, and Mississippi State has proven they've got the hitting as well. But of course, their pitching is their main forte.
And I also like Mississippi State because they've got some scrappy guys in their lineup, Chris, that just don't go down without a fight. They foul off pitches. They extend at bats.
Oh, yeah.
They find a way to get on base. And let me tell you, those type of teams, whether it's in postseason play or especially in these College World Series, you don't want to go up against a lineup like that, because not only are they doing that, but they're making the opposing pitcher work.
Well, that's how you scrape out a 3-2 or 2-1
exactly.
or 1-0 win.
They're making him throw so many excess pitches, which gets those starters out of the ball game early. Makes the coach force his hand to go to the bullpen early, and then you're able to pounce on that bullpen. Next thing you know, you've got a pretty comfortable lead the rest of the way to where you can save your closer like Landon Sims. And so really that's what I like out of this Mississippi State ball club. And of course, we'll see what happens tonight, but I love their chances tonight, quite frankly, because of what I just stated. They're throwing their Friday night ace, left-hander Christian McLeod. He's more than likely going to be a first-round pick coming up next month.
Yeah, Virginia's going to have to surprise and play as well as they did against Tennessee and then some.
Right.
Tonight.
But I've noticed from Virginia as of late, they do a little bit of the same as Mississippi State, where I've seen them pitch it well, and they have been able to extend at bats. So we very well could see a very tight-knit game tonight between two teams who are somewhat identical right now. Looking at how they played during both of their postseason runs, should be a fascinating game tonight. But of course, I'm sticking to my pick, the Mississippi State Bulldogs, to win this and to ultimately make it out of that side of the bracket in Omaha.
Okay, well, moving on, I want to touch on racing a bit. So in Formula One, Max Verstappen won the race. The Red Bull team made a great decision to stop him towards the end of the race, and he was able to charge up from fourth to win. much to the chagrin of the Mercedes drivers, who both thought that they needed to pit twice in the race, but Mercedes thought otherwise, and a rare wrong decision from Toto Wolff. SRX, Tony Stewart won. Appropriate that he wins his own the own racing series that he started.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but he had a great race, and again, it was on dirt this week, and again, the racing was fun to watch and really close, beating and banging. Haley Deegan finished second, so got the old superstar finishing first, and then the young up-and-comer finishing second. But the big surprise of the weekend, at least for me, the NASCAR race. I mentioned briefly last week how everybody was a lot of people didn't think that Nashville was going to be a great race. They thought that it would be kind of like in the past, where before, one reason they stopped racing there, it wasn't super interesting. It was a one-groove track, but it ended up being a pretty fantastic race in the sense that the cars were sliding around. There was a lot of passing behind first place. I'll get back to that in a little bit.
Yeah, which I know I saw that a lot myself Sunday.
Yeah, there was a lot of moving through the field. Like my favorite driver, Daniel Suarez, he was able to save his tires and equipment, and on the long run, just pass people, which is what you want to see. You want to see drivers move up and down as their car gets better or worse. So we saw a lot of that in the race, and it was actually a pretty good race, in my opinion.
Sure was.
Had a lot of brake issues. It's an awkward sized track. It's a 1.33 mile track, if I recall correctly. So it's right in between short track and intermediate. I think a lot of teams may have brought brakes that were a little bit too small for the loads that were being put on them. So we had about a half a dozen brake failures, if I recall correctly. Had quite a few.
Oh, wow.
And I was listening to the radios, and a lot of drivers were complaining about their brakes being soft, and they were really having to manage. So drivers that were doing a good job to manage their brakes
did well in this race.
Yeah, they were able to come out towards the end, which is how that and a little bit of strategy. We had an interesting top 10 where drivers like Ross Chastain finished second. Ricky Stenhouse was up there.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Olive Branch native.
Oh, yeah.
Olive Branch, Mississippi native.
Daniel Suarez finished seventh. So we had some interesting guys like that who were able to use strategy and manage their car and get in the top 10. But as I called, Kyle Larson at Hendrick Motorsports.
He dominated that race, didn't he, Chris?
Yeah, it was
from start to finish.
This was the most dominating of any of them so far that he's won. I know it. So
I know it. Just maintain that lead.
Yeah,
forever and ever and ever.
Yeah,
seemed like
the race never really felt in doubt for him.
No doubt.
And it just continues a crazy streak. In the past 6 races, he finished second at Darlington, second at Dover, second at Circuit of the Americas, and then first at Charlotte, first at Sonoma, and now first at Nashville.
Man.
That means he's got an average finish in the last 6 races of 1.5, which is just insane.
Man, have a run, Kyle Larson.
But here's the crazy thing. He's not actually first in points right now, technically speaking. Denny Hamlin is first in points, and he hasn't won a race yet.
That's absolutely mind-boggling.
Denny Hamlin's been crazy consistent, but obviously Larson's coming up
He's
quick.
hot.
Yeah, so
he's hot right now.
Larson's like 9 points behind, so it probably won't be long for Larson to take that lead.
Chris, what would it take for him to take over that lead? Would he need to come in first or second like he has been in the next race, or how would he be able to take the lead over Hamlin?
I don't think so. I mean, Hamlin has been so consistent. But if Larson just gets top 5 finishes
at this pace point, that he's on,
yeah. I mean, because it feels like unless something drastically changes, Hendrick and Larson are going to have plenty more wins coming.
Yes, for
So,
sure.
Larson just needs, on the days where he's not got the winning car somehow,
Be in it.
just be in the top 10, and that's really all it's going to take. Now, of
Okay.
course, when the playoffs come, it's going to be all out the window.
Now, doesn't NASCAR cut it to 10 at that point?
Well, it's
Or how does that work?
it changes so much. Now they have 16.
16.
drivers.
Okay. I like that.
And-
It gives those other drivers a shot.
Right.
Of
So
course.
it'll cut down every few races after that until you
Okay.
get down to the final four for the
Okay,
last race.
so they do have a Final Four. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, theoretically, Kyle Larson could win every race from now till the end of the season, and then the last race wreck and not win the championship. So
Oh man,
I mean, we'll see.
wouldn't that be a bummer?
Yeah, for sure. But there is a regular season champion,
Yeah,
and I feel like he's
on the right pace for sure.
yeah.
He's,
It looks like he's going to probably win that because, like I said,
Yeah.
if they just keep winning like this, all he's got to do is finish in the top 10.
okay.
Now, Denny Hamlin, the crazy thing is we've had so many winners this year. Now the pace is slowing down,
Right.
since Kyle Larson is winning so much. But there's been so many winners that if Denny Hamlin doesn't win the regular season championship, there's a chance that he might not be locked in for the playoffs. But that would mean
Man.
another half dozen or so drivers that haven't won yet winning a race. So it's not quite as likely as it was earlier this year. But that's something to keep an eye on.
Okay.
But yeah, this stretch by Kyle Larson is it's as crazy as the stretch is, it's still not the most insane of the modern era. In 1998, Jeff Gordon, he went on a stretch where I believe it was 6 races where he was first, third, and then 4 wins in a row. It was 5 first and 1 third. I know that, but he had an average finish of like 1.33 or something like that. That's still the craziest. But here's the thing: Kyle Larson's stretch isn't over, so we'll see what happens in
Right.
race 7 and race 8.
Yeah, and Jeff Gordon was one of my favorite drivers. So that's really cool to see.
Well, and something else about that time, Hendrick Motorsports was, of course, one of the top teams then. But even then, they always sort of had that 4th or 3rd car
Okay.
that wasn't quite as up to par as the top 1 or 2.
Okay.
Because, I mean, of course, Jeff Gordon was just dominating. But now he's got 4 cars that could win every weekend.
Man,
They're-
you got to love that.
Well, if you're Rick Hendrick, you do, or if you're one of a Hendrick fan, you do. But Kyle Larson is just. We've known Kyle Larson is an incredibly talented race car driver.
Yes.
He's proven it in his dirt track racing, and he always proved it in that when he drove for Ganassi. It's obvious now how much he was out driving his equipment because he was just doing so well in those cars that, I mean, they're still a good team, but they're not Hendrick. And now that he's in top tier equipment, he's using that chance to his advantage,
And he knows how to win
and he's winning week in and week out now.
consistently.
Right. And that doesn't even include the All-Star race that he just won. So it's just an insane stretch, and we'll see how.
Winning everything in plain sight.
Yeah, and this weekend we go forward to Pocono. It's a double weekend, so we have a
Pocono.
race Saturday and Sunday. Earlier in his career, it wasn't a great track for Larson, if I recall, but he's gotten better there in recent years, and of course Hendrick will still have great cars. So it'll be interesting to see. We may get a different winner this weekend. However, we may get a double winner. So if Kyle Larson is on, he could very well win 2 races this weekend.
No doubt about it.
Because whoever's good Saturday will probably be good Sunday. So that's what the weekend moving forward will look like in the world of NASCAR.
Chris, I'd like to give a shout out to Hayden Buckley, the Tupelo native, who had a great first day at the 121st U.S. Open.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Crazy that he was only 2 spots behind Brooks Koepka, who's one of the great golfers in the world right now. Unfortunately, he gets cut at 9 over, but just really, really proud of Hayden Buckley competing at a major, having a great day. I know he's going to get better as his golfing career continues, but I wanted to give a shout out to him. I've known him for quite a while, Chris. He and my brother Lee McBunt. Shout out to my brother Lee as well. I love you, bro. But they were teammates on a travel baseball team called the Tupelo Rangers. So I've been around Hayden Buckley. I've known him. I'm just so thrilled and happy for him right now that his golfing career is starting to blossom and take off, and I wish him all of the best going forward in his career. And I just wanted to shout him out and let him know that we're pulling for you, Hayden, and go get him, my brother.
Yeah, this is super cool to see a great start. I mean, it's just, first major, so plenty of time to improve and get more in the groove of what it's like to compete.
Yes,
at a level like that.
And let me tell you, Brooks Koepka, he was coming for you, man. but before
right there.
Yes, I'm telling you, he's coming for you. So look out, because my boy Hey Buck's coming for you.
Yeah, I really wish Hayden the best moving forward.
Absolutely, I'm so proud of him for sure.
All right, well, it's time for a little bit of fun to close out here. I went to Basketball Reference, just chose a random page, and this episode it sent me to a game from 2005, January 2nd to be exact, between the Denver Nuggets at the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, at the time of this meeting, the Nuggets were 14-16, Lakers were 16-12, so both kind of hovering around that 500 mark. But we got some names you probably remember on this. Of course, you got Carmelo Anthony on the Nuggets.
Yeah, he's with the Portland Trail Blazers now.
And then on the Lakers side, of course, you got Lamar Odom.
Oh, great basketball player.
Oh, yeah. And also can't forget about Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, the late great Mamba himself, Kobe Bryant. May he rest in peace. We definitely miss him being with us for sure. Just one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, it felt kind of appropriate that the first time I do this, it takes us to a Lakers page when he was playing. It's been...
Yes.
Oh, gosh, has it been a year now? It's been a while now since it happened. And
I know it. I know the anniversary of it was back in January. I remember it happening in January of
crazy.
The beginning of the crazy 2020 year that we had.
That's right.
Right before the pandemic.
It's been almost a year and a half then. Wow.
Yeah, and it's crazy that happened right before everything with the pandemic started.
Yeah, I think that's one reason it's hard to remember. Everything's just kind of blended together since then. But I
obviously my thoughts and prayers are still with the Bryant family and the victims of that awful helicopter crash.
Yeah, thoughts go out to them and all, like the family of the friends
right
that were on there with them, the other kids that were there and their family.
But we obviously miss Kobe Bryant, and my gosh, was just so fun to watch him compete night in and night out, and do all the great things that he did for basketball, and what he was doing, coaching his daughter's young girls basketball team. And it's just fortunate that he's not here with us anymore. Life is too short, Chris.
Yeah, for sure. And he showed out in this game. He had 42 points.
As expected.
Yeah, 42 points.
Man, yeah.
He's the reason.
The Mamba.
Big reason that they won this game.
Mama, there goes that man.
Shot 55%.
Woo!
Yeah.
Do it, Kobe.
What a game. Lamar Odom shot 0%. Oh, that's free throw. Sorry. I was about to say, what?
Was Pau Gasol still on that Lakers team?
No,
or was he? So he was still with the Memphis Grizzlies then.
Yeah, it looks like.
Okay.
I don't see him here. And my bad. Let me clarify. Kobe Bryant shot 55%.
Yeah.
From the free throw line.
Yeah.
So Kobe Bryant, but he was still almost 50% from just regular shooting. He's 48%, 33% 3-point. Lamar Odom, 43%. Lamar Odom had 13 points, or 12 points, excuse me. But definitely a game for Kobe.
So, ironically enough, Chris, just like last week's reference where the Mets of 65 4 years later end up winning a World Series title, now we're to the 2005 Lakers, who in 4 years would win back-to-back championships.
Yeah, the Lakers were on a bit of a lull here in between their success.
Right, and going back to Pau Gasol, they would end up acquiring him. Crazy enough, Chris, I do remember this. It was a brother-for-brother swap between.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Between both teams,
as
that. Pau is traded from Memphis to L.A. in exchange for his brother Mark Gasol, who goes from L.A. to Memphis.
I wonder what that was like at Thanksgiving that year. Became an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Yes. Obviously, you could see one of them saying to the other, "Why did I go from such a sucky team, or excuse me, from a winning team to a sucky team?" And obviously, I reckon Powell had a lot to thank Mark for that.
Probably so.
I reckon, I'm willing to bet you he bought a lot of things for him, paid a lot of things off probably, but
let me help you out, brother.
But that trade obviously helped the Lakers out in the long run, winning back-to-back championships, and then they were also able to acquire Meta World Peace, a.k.a. Ron Artest, to go along with those two championship teams. But just that mindset, that Mamba mentality of Kobe Bryant, one of the all-time greats, doing it night in and night out, and you're able to acquire pieces to a championship puzzle. You're able to win back-to-back championships. Just remarkable turnaround by the historical Lakers organization, which we're normally accustomed to them being in the playoffs, winning championships. Now it hasn't happened as of late, even though the Lakers are just a year removed from winning the NBA championship, and they're finally starting to get back to their winning ways as a franchise. But just a great another great turnaround at that point of time in NBA and sports history, going from worst to first.
I'll touch real quick on the other side. Carmelo Anthony had a good game, had 27 points, but of course it just wasn't enough to overcome that great game from Kobe Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers, who won 99-91. So that was a quick look at history. January 2nd, 2005, Denver Nuggets at Los Angeles Lakers, if you want to take a look at it yourself.
Rest in peace, Kobe.
Rest in peace.
So I believe that just about wraps up this edition of the Sport Fanatics podcast.
Yeah, I think
here
so.
on this Tuesday afternoon. Chris, what are you most looking forward to this evening?
Well, of course, going to have eyes on that game tonight between Mississippi State and Virginia.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that'll
be a great one.
That'll really set the tone for how the rest of that bracket will go. What about you?
Well, I'll tell you what. We've got the NBA Draft Lottery tonight at 7:30 on ESPN, and that is right before tonight's Game 2 between the Clippers and the Suns. I'm looking forward to that game as well. After a great Game 1 between both teams, went down to the wire. Game 1 belonged to the LA Clippers, of course, as we touched on this before, in a 120-114 loss to the Phoenix Suns. Suns lead the series 1-0. Obviously, both sides dealing with injuries. Clippers are without Kawhi Leonard in Game 2 tonight, still bothered by that knee injury, and CP3, I do not believe, has been cleared yet to play after entering health and safety protocol. So the Suns will be without their star point guard tonight as well, I do believe. So, of course, as I stated before, scoring's going to fall upon Devin Booker. Can he repeat that 40-point double-double performance in Game 1?
Be a tall order.
For sure. And can the other young role players on that Phoenix Suns squad step up as well? Paul George and Terrence Mann are playing great basketball as of late, which they certainly needed to do because of the absence of Kawhi Leonard. But they need to keep it up offensively for sure. But I do expect another exciting game of this series tonight, Game 2, following the NBA Draft Lottery. So we will figure out where each respected teams pick.
Yeah, we'll look forward to talking about later this week not only who wins these games in baseball and basketball, but we'll find out what the pick order is.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about that later this week. Moving forward, where can the people find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can add me as a friend on Facebook. My name is John Michael McBunch. Of course, I go by J Mike, especially on this podcast. That is my nickname that I received over a decade ago by a buddy of mine named Eric Nesby when I was in the Tupelo high school band.
Yeah, you've been living with that one for a while now.
Shout out to Eric Nesby for that nickname that is stuck with me, and it's one that I'm glad that he came up with for sure, considering I go by my first and my middle name. But my name is John Michael McBunch, so feel free to add me as a friend on Facebook. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Both of my handles on both of those social media accounts are at lowercase, and this is all lowercase, people, but it's at J_Mike Check. No spacing between Mike and Check. It all runs together. So it's on Twitter and Instagram. It is at lowercase J_Mike Check. So please feel free to add me as a friend or follow me. I love to talk sports, and I'd be willing and anxious to hear from all of you here pretty soon. But yeah, just feel free to follow me, and if you ever have any questions or comments, or you just want to flat out talk sports, which is what I love to do, feel free to holler at me on all social media, all three of those social media platforms.
All right, well, cool. And I don't really use Facebook, but you can find me on Twitter at Christopheles11. That's my Twitter handle. It's spelled like Chris Top Holes 11 on Twitter. That's also a nickname I've had for a while now, and it's kind of funny. I had multiple people call me that years apart that never even knew each other. So just figured I use that as well on my Twitter. And you can follow the podcast itself, Sport Fanatics. That's the Twitter handle. The S and the F are capitalized, but you should be able to type it in either way and find it if you search. So those are my Twitter handles and the Twitter handle for the show itself. But I think that covers it for this week.
Yeah, great show today, and looking forward to these up and coming games, and of course the draft lottery. Thank you again, Chris, for getting everything set up for us to be able to do this show today. I really appreciate you and for everything that you're doing for growing and developing this podcast. It's going to be an absolute privilege to be on here with you.
Oh, well, you're very
week
welcome.
After week. I'm just so excited to be doing this with you, brother, and I look forward to. I just look forward to the journey with you, brother.
Oh, same here. Thanks here. Thank you for coming on, J. Mike, and it helps when we have such great sports to be talking about. Been some great games, and hopefully that trend continues. And
and we're always going to have plenty to talk about. But this is just a great time if you're a sports fan with NBA playoffs, getting to the real later stages of its postseason tournament. We are so close to the NBA Finals, and then you've got College World Series going on right now. It's just a great time to be a sports fan, especially if you're a basketball or college baseball fan.
And we can't forget something we'll try to touch on later this week. Hockey is going on as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They're close to Stanley Cup final as well. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris. You can't forget about hockey. They're in the latter part of their postseason as well.
All right. So
especially if you're a hockey fan, you're excited as well.
Yeah, so much going on, but until next time, y'all have a good week, and we'll be back on Friday.
Peace out, guys.